really sure what I'm going to say. I feel a bit sleepy and feel a level of, some feeling of discomfort, like something hasn't been fully resolved, and that's like a familiar sort of feeling. Oh, look at that. Anyhow, so it's interesting how in our minds we often have these conversations, with people that they disagree with us, or sort of like that are like stand-ins for the people who've disagreed with us in the past. And it's like we're trying to explain something to them, that where we haven't really fully felt understood. And so like there's this sense of, this need for somebody else to understand our point of view, because they represent some part of the world, that we feel sort of rejected by, I guess. At least that's sort of my, part of what I think is, behind it, like this feeling of rejection and this feeling of like, when we've done our best and somehow, our best to be noble, our best to be truthful, and our best to do the right thing, and yet somehow some person judged us based on something more superficial than that, and then they wanted something from us that we couldn't reasonably give to them, and they wanted us to make some declaration about ourselves that would only be a lie. It would only be a lie. It would only be a mask so that we could fit in, and it's like, to me it's always been very difficult, and it's one, to make these kind of sort of adjustments for social groups, and for to be part of a group. It's always been hard for me to like swallow what is sort of expected in order to be part of that group, because it seems like it doesn't really matter if you actually live by the code of that group, that is the explicit truth, because that is only there to as an outward proclamation. But then what you also have to do is sort of live by the implicit rules of that group. And often the implicit rules are, they're treacherous. They're treachery, deception, lies, and you're shamed. You're shamed for not willing to be dishonest in that way. It's like it's like if you don't really take part in their hypocrisy, they shun you, and you feel shunned, and you feel this judgment, and there's this lack of consistency, this lack of empathy, and it's very difficult to like, and it makes you have to choose between your social instinct and your instinct to be an honest, authentic human being. And it's like, for me, I think some people have a stronger instinct to be social, and some people have a stronger instinct to, for self-reflective honesty, where it's painful to live a lie, even if it is a lie that is, sort of necessary to be part of the group, whatever group that may be, and it's like, it's like something that I've had to make peace with, or have, is one of the things that I've been trying to make peace with most of my life, is because, like, the second that I entered kindergarten, I felt this, this pressure from around me, of this, it's like this, I don't know, it just feels like this, there's like this, it's almost like the kids have rabies or something, It's like, it's like, if they don't think that you have, if they get a sense that you don't have the same kind of rabies that they have, then they sort of want to attack you, and, because it's like, if you somehow remind them that, that their way of being is not the only way of being, it reminds them perhaps of something else within themselves that they're not honoring, and they feel threatened by it. And it's like, I don't know. I've always been sort of, I don't know, kind of stubbornly individualistic in that sense. It's not like, it's not like I don't enjoy the company of others. I do, and I've usually had at least one or two close friends in my life, and there's some family members that I get along with well, but it's just like, when I sense that there's something lacking in the, it's like something lacking in the integrity of the people around me. I just, I don't care like how ennoble, how they ennobilize themselves, or what kind of mythology they try to like present, or like what they do on the outside to like, to do like some ceremonial gesture to goodness and truth. If it's not, if it feels like they don't really believe that, and what their actions are saying about them, isn't how they live their lives, then it just, I can't do it. I can't be around those people, because my instinct is to call them out on it, and I feel, so I kind of have to like get away from them, because otherwise it's uncomfortable for me, and I don't really want to be in this position of, being the messenger for like your own unanswered conscience. It's like, it's not what I want my calling to be in life. It's, that's too much work, and most people aren't interested, but it is something, it's sort of, it's I think part of like why forgiveness is a value, because you kind of have to make peace with that. You live in a world where most people are lying, cheating people who are hypocritical, and it's not like, we ought to expect something different than that, and it's not even that we need to really stand in judgment of that. It's just like, that's not for me, and so, I can forgive that, so that I don't have to think about it. I don't have to make that it's not my mission in life to like try to make other people be the way I am, because like whatever, you could like criticize me in all sorts of ways and say that I'm semi off the mark, but I live my life the way that I think is best, and I try to do the best thing that I can. And yes, I have emotions that get a hold of me, and I work with that, and I've done things that I'm not proud of, but my intention is usually to be in alignment with my own sort of sense of this is what feels is like the correct, honest and truthful way to be, and I think that can mean a lot of things, but what it means to me, that's what's important. Anyhow, so I just thought I'd turn on the camera, see what would come out, and this is what came out. So I'll leave it here. Have a good one.